You sit in your chair, thinking, pondering about the sole fact that one day you will die. You will never be able to experience everything you wanted to do. You won't be able to meet everyone you wanted to meet. This realization overwhelms you with pure melancholy at the thought that one day, sometime in the near or distant future, everything will come to an end. Everyone you know will die. And the world as you know it will cease to exist with the passing of time.
Yeah, that's the best shit to be thinking about while playing your stupid anime waifu game.
Video games to many people are a form of escapism, a way to spend a moment or two forgetting about the burdens of the real world and becoming fully engrossed into a whole new virtual world. You want to know what a perfect way to ruin that feeling for many is? Adding a fucking time limit that stresses them out even more than something in the real world. I mean, think about it. I want to unwind after a long day, and instead of unwinding, I'm worried about completing everything I want to do within a time limit. Now, I'm not talking about a Mario game where you have an insanely generous amount of time to complete a level. I'm talking more about the strict and punishing ones. The type of arbitrary time limits that make you constantly nervous about it running out and ruining the experience you're having with the game. Now, some people do enjoy this mechanic a lot, and you know what? More power to them, because I will never understand the appeal of this. I feel 3 games that handle this concept in varying degrees of success and failure are Persona 5, Danganronpa, and Majora's Mask. Just a disclaimer, by the way, I like all 3 of these games to a certain extent. Hell, Danganronpa is the best visual novel series that is out there. This is just me talking about the worst game mechanic out there, in my opinion, of course. So let's start with Persona. Persona 5 is basically an RPG with a dating sim just slapped on top of it. And trust me, I wouldn't have it any other way. This game was my first ever Persona, as weeb shit generally turns me away from a game, but I mean, those visuals are fucking phenomenal, so I had to try. What had hooked me, though, was the idea of living a double life. One as a vigilante who tries to help people through an alternate reality, and another as a normal teenage boy going through high school. Basically, I was promised Danny Phantom, and that's fucking what I got.
He's a phantom.
I actually really enjoy the sections where you're with friends and going around living a normal teenager's life. It's an interesting take on how to incorporate mundane concept into a video game while also having them actually be fun. You know, unlike some other game designers.
David fucking Cage.
Now, I do enjoy all this, but I started this game almost a year ago and am barely halfway through it. Why is that, other than the fact that it's fucking like 102 hours long?
Because I can't stand the pressure of when this game gives you free time, alright?
You see, Persona handles its free time by basically allowing you to do whatever you want in the overworld. You want to hang out with your goth nurse letting her date rape you? You can do that! Or you want to go and eat the Big Bang Burger? You can do all sorts of shit. The problem is, this takes time. Most days you only have time to do 2 things. This adds a ton of pressure for me as the player, as I want to do all this cool and crazy shit, but feel constantly obliged to do what is most optimal for my playstyle. And also, maxing out confidants is super important, but hanging out with certain people when it won't raise their confidant just feels like a waste, even though it really isn't. The worst part about this is, some days you have mandatory story missions, which can totally screw up what you were planning to do for that day. As Morgana decides, you're tired, go to sleep, you idiot. But Morgana, we literally just hung out with friends for like 30 minutes.
Go to bed, you simian fuck!
This adds so much pressure to me as a player, as I want to experience all this cool shit, but don't really know how to go about doing that without playing optimally. Worst part is, when going through dungeons, your party will tell you that they are tired and that you should take a break for the day. When I first played, I thought that meant my party was going to start missing more or not do as much damage, so I promptly left every time they said they were tired. Pro tip, that's a fucking bad idea! Even though it says they're tired, they're really not. Like, it doesn't matter. You can just keep going through the dungeon. All the shit I thought that would happen doesn't happen at all. It's just, time's passing, you should probably get out of here. It's like the fucking 3DS, like, you've been playing for too long, might want to shut off the game. You waste so much time leaving the palace like that because your party is actually not tired. I basically got fucked time-wise on my first palace because I should have been treating my party members overtime with no breaks like a goddamn slave worker. Thing is, though, at the end of the day, it's not the worst implementation of this concept in a game for me. That goes to Danganronpa. You see, Danganronpa's whole theme is the idea of despair. Well, that's exactly what I feel when these fucking free time segments come up. In Danganronpa, anyone at any time can be murdered. That is the basic nature of the game. Your friends and people you will meet will slowly be murdered by the people around you, and you have no idea when. So when you get free time to talk to people, you have no idea who you should choose. Since anyone could die at any time, you find more often than not the person you want to talk to was actually a bad idea because they are alive way longer than the person you didn't want to talk to. This means that you basically missed out on an entire backstory of a character that you would have enjoyed. Hell, maybe it would have even made you change your opinion of the character. What makes this worse is the fact that talking to people and getting to know them better gives you abilities to help out in class trials. This means that you're not just missing out on certain dialogue options, but also certain cool abilities to use. This is basically the confidant system, but the confidants could die at any time and you don't know when! You do not get enough time to talk to everyone, and you will end up not talking to someone as much as you wanted to before they die. It is the nature of the game that you should feel cheated and hurt that you didn't get to talk to someone as much as you wanted to. However, I feel like this is a little too much here. To be honest, I would have gotten way more enjoyment with the game if these segments were just left out, or if I wasn't limited to talking to a few people a day and could hang out with everyone. Basically, what I'm getting at here, the game is just a little too good at making the player feel that despair. Moving on to our last game, we're going to talk about Majora's Mask. Now, this game handles its time limit differently than the other two. Instead of having dedicated segments where choosing how to spend your time matters, in Majora's Mask, anytime you're walking around in the game, you have a constant threat of wasting time. Here, it's a running clock. Instead of being subjected to limited choice time mechanics like the other two games, you have a constant timer until the moon reaches Termina, and it's game over. Now, with this timer constantly ticking down, you may think that this is the most stressful to me out of all the three listed. And in thinking that, you are absolutely 100% fucking wrong.
I fooled you.
You see, Majora's Mask does one thing differently than the other two. If you were to say waste every single minute of the time you get in Majora's Mask and do nothing, instead of potentially missing out on content in the long run, like in P5 and Danganronpa, it basically just has you try it again. Think of each 3-day period in Majora's Mask as its own separate run of that part of the game. Kind of like how the game Minute has you constantly running out of time, but being able to just try again if you were to waste all of the time. To me, this is the best way to handle your time mechanic in a game. As you can tell, I hate missing content in games I like, so having a time limit that basically tells me that I will miss out on most of what I want to see unless I look up how to min-max the shit out of the game, that's not fun to me. It's stressful. But strangely enough, in a game like Majora's Mask, where the time limit is actually much more demanding by only giving you 54 real-time minutes, but because I'm not actively missing out on content by not playing 100% optimally, it's a lot more relaxed to me. I know that if I waste time, I'll still just be able to just try it again. It still has the intense feel of a clock constantly ticking down, but in actuality, it's just not as punishing as in P5 or Danganronpa. So what is the point of this video? Basically, having a time mechanic in your game is a slippery slope for me. I mean, obviously it's not deal-breaking, as all of these games I've listed I do like to varying degrees. However, it is not ideal in most cases. What I'm getting at is, if you are going to have a limited time mechanic in your game, it is way more fun to someone like me when the only consequence is having just to start over. When you start getting into missing content and min-maxing, that's where it turns from a fun game to me to an anxiety-ridden slog. And hey, this may just be me. And I mean, that's really all this channel is about, my personal opinions on anything that may interest me to talk about in a video. If you like this mechanic, fine by me, enjoyment is subjective. However, I just wanted to show why exactly time limits in games are too stressful for me.